Hi guys, today we're going to talk about UFOs and the paranormal and whether there's an overlap between the two and even a misidentification between the two. But what I wanted to cover first is people ask, what are UFOs? So actually in my book I come up with a number of explanations, 10 explanations. One is they're extraterrestrial. They fly here from outer space in a craft. The second explanation is they're interdimensional. They pass through a dimension. Third explanation is they're really us from the future coming back through time travel. The fourth explanation is that it's demonic. It falls in line with the end of days and Jesus and the great deception that Satan is going to pull over us. And that's what we're going to kind of talk to today, and maybe even interdimensional. The fifth explanation is the ancient astronaut theory that you see on TV, that we were genetically upgraded. They've been here for thousands of years. The sixth explanation is the hollow earth, or I learned a new term, Fred, called crypto-terrestrial. Means that they live under the earth, the hollow earth theory, called crypto-terrestrial. I'd never heard that before.
I never did either.
Yeah, that's, I was reading a book that we'll talk about later. Seventh explanation, it's all a hoax or a hallucination. Actually a hoax. Number 8 is psychological, that this is something that in people's minds. So we'll talk about that. And then 9 is that it's prison Earth, that everything dropped off here, the dinosaurs, the saber-toothed tigers, us, is kind of like picked up elsewhere in the universe and dropped off on Earth. The 10th explanation is that the Air Force just uses UFOs as a cover story for their own black projects and technology that they haven't told the public about, or it's some sort of combination of any of those. Yeah. So what we're going to do today, normally I bring my book to reference. Today I brought the book, the Holy Bible, because we're going to need this today when we talk about some of these explanations. So we're going to put the Bible there. An interesting thing happened over the way. There was, a couple of years ago, there were 2 movies. I think one actually last year called Darkness Falls, and one was maybe 5-6 years ago called The Fourth Kind. Right. They both came out, and I tell you, they're 2 of my favorite movies. The Fourth Kind was the one that was up in Alaska, right. And with that one, there were abductions that took place in Alaska. The FBI was involved. But the way it was presented was really, you didn't know if you didn't know anything about the movie, you didn't know if you were watching a paranormal poltergeist type show. And it's really the last half hour they get into the UFO side of it. And I thought that was intriguing. Didn't get good reviews because they said they mixed The Exorcist and paranormal with UFOs, as if they're different, like somebody actually knows. So then last year, this movie comes out called Darkness Falls. Again, you're watching it, and there's all kinds of knocks and movement in the house and things going on, and it's the end of the movie that they abduct the son. And the son that they thought they were going to abduct, they got the other one. 2 really good movies. And I really enjoy these because they mix the UFO genre with paranormal. So that's what I want to talk about today. Is there an overlap between what we've been told about UFOs and what goes on with paranormal? Because you've experienced these things, Rhonda. You too have investigated not only UFOs, but cryptozoology, the paranormal. You have a broad sense of this whole unexplained genre.
But when you get into the UFOs, you're getting into the paranormal right there. Most people that are abducted experience poltergeist, experience telepathy, experience all kind of paranormal activity. So I mean, that's right there.
And that's exactly what we want to talk about.
And even quite often encounters with cryptids during their life.
Right.
Yeah.
They see cryptids and that. And
so you had some overlaps. We'll get into this. You had some overlaps between the paranormal and UFOs, like some similarities that you wanted to tell us about, like how they could misidentify the demonology. You brought some notes about how they both kind of overlap.
The perpetrators in both of these. Okay, so you take satanic ritual abuse. Back in the day, a lot of your UFO, the people in the craft, the aliens, used to wear black hoods, black capes, which was very indicative of satanic people at that time. So this is why a lot of this started, I think. But if you look at the perpetrators, in alien abductions, you got the being in charge, aliens, extraterrestrial, humanoids. You got reptilian creatures, all right? Men in black and shadows in mind. Then when you got survivor accounts, you have the high priest or priestess in charge, which would be there. Then you got beast and reptilian creatures again. They're brought back into it. The men in black and shadow in mind. Message is given, you know, they tell you you are special, and then they tell you are special in both of them. You will return, you will return. Do not tell and do not tell. 9 out of 10 things actually, it's the same. I mean, it's like you're actually reading the same thing. You got circles with aliens, you got circles and triangles. With satanic ritual abuse, you got circles and pentagram and triangles. So everything's about the same. I mean, you just got to look at it totally different.
Yeah. Well, how would somebody know if something happens in their bedroom at night? How do you know if it's demonic, or how do you know if it's an extraterrestrial? How do you know the difference?
I think that the whole thing would boil down here. If it's demonic and it's happening in your bedroom, it's going to stay there. If it's extraterrestrial, they're going to take you someplace.
Most people think that the noises they hear are paranormal, poltergeist, spiritual, demonic.
Right.
But yet when a being shows up, whether it's in your dreams or, you know, at night on the side of your bed, you know, they think that part is probably an extraterrestrial and abduction. So I think there's a lot of overlap between the two.
Right,
now you were starting to say before about the you know, the paranormal. Also, you wanted to add a little bit more about.
Yeah, I think that whenever you talk to a lot of people about their UFO encounters, they actually get paranormal. They can start seeing things. It's like the case we just got the other day. I mean, this lady is saying that she's actually talking to the aliens right now. And it all occurred 5 years ago when it started. A beam came out of the craft and hit a rock. She went over to the rock, touched the rock, and now she's talking to them. I mean, could that really be?
Well, there are other cases where people claim to have made this contact, and all of a sudden they have telepathic ability now.
Yeah.
They pick up other abilities after making this contact.
But see, I think this is the whole thing, because you don't have this in the demonic part. You have it in the alien part, but you don't have it in the demonic part. So.
I think people are less likely to tell friends that they had a demonic encounter, but they would rather say that it was an abduction or a UFO or a creature, an extraterrestrial. I don't think they want to say, because it's so scary to say a demon showed up when that might have been what it was. What do you think? Do you think they'd rather say it was a demon and not an ET, or say it was the other way around?
But a lot of times, okay, you got incubuses and succubuses. That's the big thing that's hitting. I mean, so are incubus and succubuses, are they demons, or are they actually creatures from outer space? I mean, we don't really know. They're interdimensional.
Well, those stories have always been around of the gargoyles. You see them on Notre Dame. I was in France, the cathedral. What do you got all on the cathedral? Gargoyles. So what were the gargoyles?
I started investigating some of the early abduction cases back in 1960s, long before people even heard about them. And we started to do a fairly extensive study of people who were involved in these type of incidents. And unfortunately, there's no funding, and we had hundreds of cases we were working on all the time in the Pittsburgh area in Pennsylvania. But I began to find a couple things. That one, some people, after having a close UFO encounter, began to have various type of paranormal experiences. Also found that many of the abductees began to experience when they were very young children. And throughout their lives, they had many type of unusual events, from poltergeist activity to ESP experiences, premonitions, but they also, throughout their lives, and some of these people from 30 years ago I'm still in touch with today, they had encounters with UFOs, with various cryptids such as Bigfoot, and it's just really amazing. And in fact, I found that there's whole generations of families. I mean, I've talked to people today that started out 40 years ago, and now they go through their children and their grandchildren, and they're all having experiences.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thinking with UFOs, that, and a psychiatrist, psychologist will say this, if you say you've seen the craft, you've either already been abducted or they are about to abduct you. If you actually have seen a craft, there's been some contact there. You know, that they had just abducted you or they're going to. Now, have you ever seen a UFO?
In all the years I've been doing this, it's 56 years this year I've been doing this research, I have never personally seen a UFO or a Bigfoot.
Okay.
Interviewed thousands of people, seen a lot of evidence, but I've never seen one.
Okay. I've been doing it 19 years. I haven't seen one either. Have you had any of this paranormal poltergeist abduction activity at your house or anything? Have you experienced any of that?
No.
Okay. I have. Rhonda has. Have you? Okay, so have you ever seen a UFO?
No.
Okay.
Okay. You know, it depends. I mean, I've seen things I can't explain.
Yeah.
Now, again, we're going to look at what is a UFO.
Right.
I mean, you know, so from there, I haven't seen, I would say, little gray people.
Right.
But I've seen things I can't explain.
Okay. Now, Rhonda, you're our other guest today. Tell us about some of the stuff that you were telling me that happened, like around your bed, in your bedroom. Some of the stuff that's happened to you. Now, you're also a very religious person. You believe absolutely and devoutly in the Bible and in Jesus. So your perspective is from that, but you're also wanting to learn about UFOs. So
Yes.
tell us what happened and how you categorize it.
Well, strange experiences started happening to me at approximately 19 years old when an incubus did come upon me. And at that time, you know, you're really afraid to tell your parents. So I just sort of waited until it was off of me, and it was in the shape of a gargoyle. Somehow you can see through the veil or into the next dimension when these evil things come at you. Then several years after that, I was lying in bed. My father was in the living room. I was in college at the time, and through the next dimension, I could see approximately 7 shadow beings around my bed. They stayed around my bed for the whole entire night. I was terrified, and I can remember weighing myself the following morning. I lost 5 pounds in fright. So,
And you had a feeling that they weren't there to help you. It wasn't
No,
like a
it was-
pleasant feeling. Your hair was up on the back of your neck, if you have hair on the
Yes.
back of your neck,
I
and
was
you were scared.
Paralyzed. I was paralyzed in fear. I could see them around the bed. They weren't leaving. I didn't feel a sense of love, joy, or peace. Instead, I was frightened and terrorized beyond what I had ever experienced in my life. So then, when I went back to college on Monday morning, there was a pastor, a Lutheran pastor, sitting in front of me in philosophy class. And after class, I went directly up to him and I told him what happened. And he knew all about it and said that these were demons and that I can't be on the fence anymore about God or the powers of darkness. I have to make a clear-cut decision what side I want to be on. And of course, I don't want to be involved in anything evil or demonic. So I immediately said, well, I'm on God's side. And so he led me through some prayers, and immediately I could feel I went into the light, so to speak, when we said those prayers. So I just want to advise any of the viewers who were watching that around that time when I was in college, there was a girl sitting next to me in chemistry class, and she was a witch. And she was trying to talk me into becoming a witch also. But coming from my family, they were very religious, and I always wanted to be doing the right thing and being good in life, that I knew she was frightening me to begin with, and I knew I didn't want to be on the evil side. So fortunately, it all came together that the pastor was sitting in front of me at the University of Pittsburgh, and he led me through those prayers, and I was led into the light. And I do understand if there's darkness and you're experiencing darkness, to immediately get to a pastor or a minister, and they will help you through this event.
Yeah. No, it's funny.
So if there's darkness, there has to be
light.
light.
Yeah.
But you know,
Okay.
Joe Jordan, you know Joe Jordan?
Yeah, I was going to mention it. Go ahead, tell.
Joe.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, when I first got into MUFON, that's how I really got into MUFON.
Oh, you were Florida MUFON?
Yeah.
So
that's where I
you know
started.
him personally then?
Yeah, I used to.
Okay.
You know, I used to hang with him.
All right.
All
Tell
right.
the tale.
Joe and a couple of his people started the Alien Resistance. And their thing is that if you pray, if the aliens come in and you start using Christ and this and that,
Right.
that they go away.
Yes.
And Joe swears by it. I mean, I've read articles where people have done it and then they've left. So I mean, there has to
Right.
be.
And I've had an abducting
Yeah.
case where they told me the same thing.
Right. I mean, so there has to be something there. I mean, and yeah, Joe. I mean, he was into that. I mean, this was back in 1996.
We're going to get Joe to our Pittsburgh conference. I'm serious. I
Yeah.
already contacted him actually, and
Yeah.
I asked him, "Do you still give lectures
Yeah.
on this area of the
Yeah.
Bible and
Right,
UFOs
right.
and Jesus?" He says, "Yeah." When asked,
Yeah.
and now Joe, when he started looking into this, he said nobody else kind of agreed with him, or they would
Right.
tell him
There was
off
only
the
like-
record.
There was only like 3 or 4 people that did it.
But they would tell him off the record,
Yeah.
"You're right, but I can't come out public
Right.
and say that. He found 400 cases of people who said when this was happening, get out in the name of Jesus,
Right, right.
and the thing left. And some of them, they said that it was the Greys, it was the ET. Others didn't know if it was demonic or not.
right.
Now that's got to say something
Right.
about ufology. Which is it? Is it him, or is it a demon, or are they all one and the same?
Yeah, but see, the thing is, John, again, we have right now, our investigations of UFOs. We investigate one part of a UFO. We do not look at everything. Well, some of us do, but some of us don't. And I think this is the big problem with ufology today. A lot of people want to put their shades on and just look straight ahead. UFO has many aspects to it. And I think we have to look at all of it, not just one part.
And it's not just a UFO phenomenon, it's a
Right.
cryptid phenomenon
Right.
too. You've got to look at the witness, you've got to look at their background,
Right.
their experiences, and as you'll find, as Fred is saying, you cannot just look at one aspect of the UFO phenomena. I discovered this 30, 40 years ago. Many of these people have UFO experiences, have other kind of experiences as well, with the paranormal,
And
with
cryptid.
strange creatures. There's so much more to this. I've said so many years ago, the phenomenon is so strange it protects itself.
Yeah.
There's elements here we just don't understand.
You almost go through a progression. I had no interest in this topic until I was like 41 years old. I wasn't interested in UFOs. I was a Comic-Con horror magazine guy. I read Fate magazine. I didn't have an interest in this, so it's been like a progression for me. I joined MUFON, and I'm told by everybody they're nuts and bolts. They fly here from another galaxy. It takes a few light years. I don't know how they get here, but that's where they come from. Then you start saying, well, wait, some of this stuff don't add up. Is it interdimensional? Like this,
Right.
the physicists say, there's 11 dimensions. They kind of pop in and out. And it brings you along. Then you start to look at the biblical side of it and what's coming with tribulation and, Jesus and Satan, the fallen angels. And you say, so does some of that stuff fall
I
in
think
line
a lot,
also?
if you read the Bible and you're really open-minded, you can actually find so many UFO incidents in there that you could relate to UFOs, but people don't want to look at it.
Absolutely.
Like Moses. A cloud by day and a light by night, manna, on top of the mountain up there. Take the man.
Parting the river.
Yeah,
the Red Sea. Yeah, how did that happen? But what happens is people know the Bible, people know UFOs from outer space, other people know cryptids or ghost hunters, but when you start mixing them, the light bulbs start going off. Well, wait a minute, that happened when I was investigating ghosts. No, I was investigating UFO. There was a UFO present. No, there was a Bigfoot also there on the farm in Uniontown.
Right.
And I tell you another thing with that. Richard Dolan's wife, what's her first name?
Karen.
Karen gave that presentation on UFOs and ghosts.
Right.
Okay, and I was looking at it, and I really started getting into that. And it's very interesting, the stuff I've been finding now. So, it's, are UFOs really, the lady we just had the report says that they're actually harvesting us back again. The same thing that I've been reading. So maybe this lady does know something.
There seems to be something with them and our soul.
Right.
They're almost like there's something where we have a soul, maybe they don't. Maybe
Right.
they're a creature that's genetically created, but we've got this other spark that they want. And they could be waiting for you there when you die. And remember the little lady, go to the light. No, don't go to the light. Go to the light.
Well, one thing I found many years ago, and it's still going on in more recent cases, with many of your close encounter UFO sightings, and in fact, cryptid encounters, there's an energy connection to it. We're all energy. But a lot of these incidents happen around high-tension power lines, power plants, gas wells, gas lines, radio towers, railroad tracks, energy sources.
And the psychologists will say that these electromagnetic waves and pulses can do things to your brain, where if they target you actually with a machine, bzz, you'll start hallucinating, and that's what people say. But it's not, because there's so many other that you're sitting on the beach, you're not near a power line, and something happens.
And one thing also I noticed many years ago is that I would get a UFO sighting in a certain area, and I would not publicize it. And within sometimes 24 hours or days later, other people came forward, not knowing the other report, confirming the description and area where it happened.
And a lot of your UFO reports, too, come from graveyards. People have seen UFOs hovering over graveyards quite a bit. Now, what are they doing there? Why would a UFO sit over top of a graveyard?
This whole topic is it's disturbing, and you can't figure it out. It's almost meant to, almost like, and I say this to the scientists, in MUFON and scientists outside, your science is not capable of explaining this. We're just not at that point. Plus, science tends to be very, with blinders, this is what we know, this is what the theory is, this is the facts. But theories are educated guesses.
Right,
They're
right.
not 100%, they're not the truth, you know. Now, I think you guys know, my daughter had something happen at my house in,
Right.
I think it was 2010, after
Right,
going to the Juvenile Diabetes Gala, where she had an encounter like yours, but they were shadow people.
Right.
It came into her. Her voices in her head came out of her, it was painful. Then happened again, and she saw one standing in the door. She was looking in the mirror, could see the reflection. Shadow person standing there says, and she hears all these voices, when you're done with her, I want to try out the other two, meaning my son and his fiance in the other room. She wouldn't have made that up.
No.
It's like you want to try out a car. I want to try out the other two. And it was a shadow figure standing in the door. And I remember she burst into my bedroom at like 3 in the morning. Dad, you're not going to believe me. You're not going to believe what happened. And she told me the story. So it reminds me of what you said about around your bed.
They're after your spirit or your soul. And so you have to keep in mind that you have to make a clear decision what side you're on. You're either going to be with God or you're going to be against God. If you're not with God, you are definitely against Him. And remember in 1 Peter, verse 5, be alert and vigilant, because your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. So you have to be protected by the light of God.
And also something else, and a lot of the mystery bedroom visitors I looked into over the years, one was a really interesting case that happened here in the greater Pittsburgh area back many years ago, but it involved an extremely close Bigfoot encounter that was followed by mystery bedroom visitors, so the witnesses. And these things sometimes are more like shadow people, but sometimes are like disembodied figures, where there's not always a complete body. Some cases, the legs are missing and they're just floating around. In some of the abduction cases I looked into, you were seeing the small humanoid figures, something like the Greys, that sometimes materialize or dematerialize right into the walls.
Now, I want to ask you, Rhonda, since you had this demonic encounter, how do you know the difference? Have you ever had a guardian angel, angelic type encounter?
Yes.
And how do you know one's good and one's bad?
Well, first of all, you somehow see into the spirit when evil is coming around you. You can feel it around you. And the first feelings you get are fright, terror, and you know this, obviously, it can't be from God. So conversely, when you have an experience with God or with a guardian angel or anything from what is beyond in light, because God is light, you will have an intense experience that something around you is very loving, and you will feel peace and love. You will not feel fright, and you will not be terrorized. And if you are feeling terrorized or frightened, that is definitely from the dark spirits and from evil. So get to your minister quickly, or go online and start doing some research. Because it says in James, the book of James, to submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. You have to be firm.
Now, on either of your experiences, did you ever smell anything?
I had
Was there a fragrance or something positive, roses,
yes,
something?
I had experiences of intense gardens of roses around me during times in my life when I was going to church daily. It's called the Incense of God, where I experienced an entire garden, like millions of roses. And nobody else was experiencing it, but
right
I
around
was.
you, like you
Yeah,
could
right
smell it,
around
and
me.
we're not.
I could smell it right away, and it lasted for quite some period of time, and it happened to me probably on 4 occasions.
Okay, and then you felt that was what? Positive?
From God, yeah.
Okay.
Love, joy, peace,
Now,
kindness.
I had some,
Did,
you know,
did you have
feel-
any, when you had the demonic, did you have
Yes.
any type of smell there, any type of scent?
No smell, just
Well,
horrible fright.
that's what I want to add now. Now, I've had
Sulfur.
the opposite, okay?
Yes.
Back in 1988, I almost got on Pan Am Flight 103. I was returning from Europe. I wanted to change my flight. Ever since that, you know, I never at the time put it together. It was December 21st, 1988. My flight was the 22nd. I ended up moving to Oklahoma, and all this paranormal stuff started in Oklahoma. So I always said it happened in Oklahoma, and it's followed me, and that's what the priests have told me. But what happened just last year in June, I was in my house, and when you talk about you smelled roses, well, that ain't what I smelled. I was upstairs, and I have a 105-pound Doberman. It smelled like rotting flesh in the upstairs bathroom. You guys have been to my house. There's a bathroom below it and a bathroom below that. Only that one. And then the big bangs on the wall, pictures flipping up, things moving. My dog went wild at the attic stairs like he saw something. It was the complete opposite. And that scared me. That scared me when that happened. I knew I'm on the fence here and I better get on that side of the fence.
And then you got the similarities with some of the early Bigfoot cases I looked into, and some since. You had some witness reporting something very heavy banging against the walls of the homes. You had some Bigfoot encounters. Not in all Bigfoot reports do you have that rotten smell, like sulfur,
That's
rotten
the first time that ever happened to me with the
but
smell.
in some cases you do. And when I was publishing some of those first reports back in the 70s, I had religious people from around the country contact me or came to visit me because they're looking at my reports. Here's this 7, 8 foot tall hairy creature with glowing red eyes, smells like rotten eggs, like sulfur, and it appears and disappears. And of course, many of them were very interested in those reports that were coming in.
Yeah, so, I'm trying to figure out, is this stuff UFOs and ETs, or is this demonic activity? And I'm kind of leaning to,
I think
that there's a
together,
mixture.
I think it's all together. I think it's all one thing. I mean, we're trying to figure it out. But getting back to 103, I have to say this. Someday we'll talk about Flight 103.
Pan Am? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, I almost got on that flight.
We'll talk about what really happened that day, too.
With Lockerbie and the
Yeah, with the
terrorism
CIA.
and stuff. CIA, well, okay,
Yeah.
you're looking at the CIA. But I was on the phone making that switch to Pan Am Flight 103, and it was so expensive, I said, nah, I'll just fly out tomorrow, and I didn't. So, Fred, I want to give you something, because we're almost done here. Here's something that someone mailed to me. I get a lot of this cool stuff, and we'll talk about this in future episodes. Psychological Operations Planning and Analysis. This is from the Department of Defense. This is for the manager of Psychological Operations, MacDill Air Force Base. And it talks, we're going to talk about MK Ultra that you mentioned, and something else. I had give you some paperwork there on the Collins Elite.
Right.
Look up the Collins Elite. We're going to do a show on the Collins Elite, a branch of the CIA that investigates the paranormal. They started investigating UFOs, and they ended up saying it's them. So, thank you for being on the show today, and that's our episode. Thank you.